Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Desk. Today we are so beyond the desk that we're actually on my back patio. I was trying to decide where I wanted to shoot this episode in my house, and the rooms just were not light and bright enough for me. So the back patio was definitely speaking to me. Several weeks ago, I had spent the afternoon trying to clean up this area. We have our black stone grill out here, and it can kind of gum up the space if you're not consistently wiping it down and getting all of the smoke and grease out of this room. It's a screened in patio, and so like my ceiling fan, I still need to clean it, but this ceiling, I really keep looking up at it and I'm like, I think I want to paint it. So I asked my audience, and overwhelmingly everybody wanted me to paint it blue. So I went to Lowe's, I got this great color called Interesting Aqua, and I am going to paint the ceiling. This afternoon I'm probably going to get my O-Cedar mop bucket out, put some Pine Sol in it, and kind of wipe that sucker down in preparation for actually doing the thing. I am really excited about it. I'm really excited. I think it's gonna look fantastic. I love sitting out here, especially in the fall when the weather's a little bit cooler. Today is the perfect day, not too hot, not too cold. I think a tropical storm's about to roll through. I don't know. It's fantastic right now. And I think it's just gonna be even that much better whenever the ceiling is painted this nice bright shade of blue. All right, we have changed up our formatting for this podcast. In the past, I have rambled on for about an hour about real estate, things that are happening in our life, and homeschooling all in one episode that's about an hour long. I've decided to chop it up. We're going to do 15-ish minute episodes, 15 to 20 minutes on each of those individual topics so that you can pick and choose what you want to listen to. I have this fantastic new assistant. Her name is Nikki. She's a virtual assistant, and she's helping me get organized and stay consistent and to be able to post all of the things on the other side, all of the idea creation and some of the ways that, it has to be pulled together, pieces and parts. Like shooting the episode is not that big of a deal. It's all of the editing that goes into it on the backside and then uploading it for everybody to be able to hear that I typically end up failing at. So I have her with me, and I think that it's going to be hugely beneficial to stay consistent with this podcast and with the different episodes that we're trying to do. Today we're going to talk about real estate. So a lot of things have changed in real estate lately. If you've been paying attention to the news, we had several new things happening starting back in August, specifically August, I think 15th, 17th, one of those two, it's ringing a bell. It's been about a month since then, and I thought now is a great time to be able to go over what it is that changed and how we've kind of felt in the industry, how people are feeling about it, and then what you can do moving forward to make sure that those changes benefit you, because that's the whole point of the changes, is to make sure that real estate agents are being protected, that the consumer is being protected, and how you can take advantage of those changes in order to have the best possible outcome for your next real estate transaction. Let's jump into that. Let's go ahead and talk about that, and then I'll tell you a little bit about a flip that we closed on this morning. I think you'll find that one interesting as well. So these changes specifically are about making sure that the consumer is aware of exactly what they're getting whenever they are using a buyer's agent. There was evidently a group of people that were claiming that buyer's agents work for free, and that is not true. There are times where sellers will offer a buyer's agent cooperating compensation, and then the buyer does not have to pay out of pocket for their buyer's agent's compensation. However, that does not mean that the agent was free. They were being paid just through one specific set of means. Whenever you look at a buyer representation agreement, which is now a requirement in order to be able to tour a home, and we can talk about that in a minute, on that buyer representation agreement, it will tell you exactly what is owed to the buyer's agent, which is negotiable between the buyer and the agent, and how it is that they are allowed to come up with that money. So you could ask to see if the sellers are offering a buyer's agent cooperating commission. The buyer could be prepared to pay the agent many different ways. You have to sit down and you have to talk through it with your agent. But the whole point of the change in that buyer representation agreement is so that there is very, very clear transparency between the agent and the buyer. You have to know what it is that you're paying for. And I think that that's where most people go wrong. They see an agent and they want to buy a house and they're like, okay, you help me get that house, let's go. And they don't really deep dive and think about all of the different things that they need from their agent. We sit down with sellers, and there is not a single seller that I have ever listed a house for where I haven't had an agreement in place prior to us doing any work together. And for some reason, even though it is a requirement and has been a requirement, people weren't doing the same thing with their buyers. They weren't sitting them down and explaining, this is how the service works. This is what I can do for you. This is what's outside of my scope of work as far as this transaction goes. That part, I think, gets a lot of people in trouble. When you see people complaining about their real estate agent online, usually it's something that's outside of their scope of work that they needed to bring in additional partners to. And at the end of the day, that's the responsibility of the buyer to make sure that they're asking their agent to do any and everything possible. The agent can definitely point you in some directions and say, hey, this could be a good idea. What would you like to do? And then you say, I would like to do this. And the agent says, absolutely, that sounds great. Whether they agree with it or not, that is their job, is to be your voice in a transaction or your voice as you're working through a transaction. Most of the time, I think that when people are upset with their buyer's agents, it's because of lack of communication. It's lack of understanding of what it is that your buyer's agent is actually doing. I find it interesting when people are like, you're, getting paid to open doors. I don't know that I've ever actually heard a reasonable human being say those words out loud. There's a lot of internet trolls out there, people who feel like they have an intimate understanding of the real estate market because they've watched a lot of TV about it. And they will say, all you do is open up doors and then you get paid for it. Yes, we do open doors, but we also do a lot of other things. We have this specific set of vendors we've vetted through. You will get a better set of vendors from your realtor than just about anybody else, especially one that does a lot of business, because they're going to have experiences with those people. They're going to know this home inspector has killed so many deals over stupid things, or this home inspector has helped save so many deals because they knew exactly what they were talking about. Appraisers, there's certain appraisers that I hear about and I'm like, oh, Lord have mercy. They're working our deal. And so we kind of figure out how to work around to be able to get to the closing table to get what it is that buyer really wants, because we know who it is that we're working with in the industry. We have the ability to kind of have the foresight of, okay, well, we know that this person's going to be involved in this, so here's what we need to do to make sure that everybody gets what they need out of this transaction. That's an important part of it. Opening doors. There have been some times where we have opened upwards of 30 to 40 doors for one individual person or a family trying to move into a home. And the number of hours that requires is a lot. And most of the time the work is nights and weekends. If you're working a traditional job, typically nights and weekends gets you bonus pay. And with a realtor, we have either a flat fee or a percentage that we get paid based off of the agreement. That is another important part of it. You cannot walk into a house without a realtor. You can, go and look at a house that's off the market, but if it is under contract in the MLS with a realtor, then a licensed professional has to walk you through that front door in order to be able to see anything inside of that house. There's a lot of other things that go into it. I guess, long story short, there's a lot of things that go into this. The biggest piece that I think is really is the most important part of it is that we are taking the emotion out of the transaction. There are investors who do transactions every single day. It's a business for them. It's not an emotional decision. It's a business. For the typical home buyer, it is a highly emotional transaction. It's happening during a time in their life where they're probably very busy. When are we ever not busy? They're trying to figure out how to move out of state. So we have to make sure that all the pieces and parts are in place so that whenever they move out of state, there's nothing that they're either leaving behind or that the transition just goes smoothly. And while they're focusing on making sure that all of their kitchen stuff is put into boxes the correct way so that they can move out of state, it is my job to make sure that the transaction is running smoothly. There are times where buyers will send a very emotionally driven repair request, and it's my job to present it to the seller in an unemotional way and help them see, okay, here are the facts. Let's figure out what we want to send back to them in a very factual way. And that way we are not pandering to lots of intense emotions on either side of the transaction. When emotions get involved, transactions go south. It's just the truth of it. And when you have buyers and sellers directly in contact with one another, it's easy to become offended. So having that person as an intermediary is worth the money, in my opinion, all on its own. Okay, so enough of that. So buyer representation agreements, the whole point behind those is to make sure that you know exactly what you're getting into when you sit down with a buyer's agent. You know exactly how they're getting paid. You know exactly what it is that they're going to do for you from start to finish throughout the transaction. Some tips: if you're interviewing with a buyer's agent, you want them to go through a contract with you. Have them walk through the buyer representation agreement, have them walk through a purchase and sale agreement with you. Make sure that they understand what their contracts are saying, and that way whenever you move forward, you know that you can trust them with those contracts, but also so that you can be familiar with it on the front end. I print off a copy for every single buyer that I sit down and talk to. I want them to have a physical copy so they can read it at night before they go to bed, and know exactly what it is that when the time comes and I ask you, not just, how much do you want to offer on this property, but there's a lot of things that you have to fill out on that form. I want you to have an understanding of it in advance of crunch time. So ask them to walk through that with you. Ask them who their preferred vendors are. Interview their lender, their choice lender. Interview with their choice title company, the person that they work best with. You are going to be working with a team of people, and if that team of people is already familiar with each other and can get you a great deal because they work well together, then you're going to be ahead of the game. Your agent should give you multiple options in all of those categories, but it would be a great idea for you to kind of interview them as a package. Interview this group of people that's about to help make a very huge transaction happen for you. Interview more than one agent. As an agent, it hurts to say that. I don't want you to do that. I want you to sit down with me, and I want you to love me, and I want to be able to move forward and help you find your house. But interview with more than one agent. There are some times that we're just not a good fit, And if you don't want to work with an agent, don't feel obligated to them just because you interviewed them first. Just as sellers will interview multiple agents to list their home, you should interview multiple agents to buy your home. So sitting down and having those conversations is important. Don't rule out agents just because they're new. I've been in the industry almost 5 years now, and I think some of the most hardworking agents are the ones who are new, who are hungry. They don't have commission breath. You don't want somebody that's so desperate for a paycheck that they're going to do anything to get to the closing table. You want somebody who is so excited to be in this industry that they're going to work hard for you because they want the best. They want to be able to provide for you everything that they had dreamed of whenever they got into real estate. There are very few realtors that I've met who really are like slimy salespeople. I can name a handful that I'm like, I don't know that I would do business with them if it were my own personal transaction. But for the most part, the people that I've met really want to help people. And you will get that vibe whenever you're talking to somebody. You will know whether or not you are just another transaction crossing their desk, or if you are somebody that they are going to take good care of, like you were a member of their family. So keep those things in mind. With this settlement, there are definitely some things that have changed. So like I said, you have to have a buyer representation agreement in hand, signed, in order to be able to walk through any property that is on the market. That can be kind of scary to have to sign something before you're walking through a front door. There are some options. There are some one-time showing agreements. So you can say, yeah, Rachel, I do. I want to go see this house, but I want a one-time showing agreement so that you remain compliant, me, the realtor, because the respect is a two-way street here. You want to, respect the guidelines that have been set forth to us by our governing bodies, so that we don't get our licenses taken away. And then at the same time, it's giving you the opportunity to interview, to get what it feels like to walk through a house with somebody. So you have to have that signed in order to be able to tour any property with a real estate agent. Now, there is a little bit of an exception, and I kind of love it. I think it's going to make this event just so much better for both the consumer and the folks who are putting them on. But open houses. When an agent hosts an open house, they are there representing the seller. It is part of the agreement that we're going to market the property in all kinds of ways, and that includes an open house. And whenever you walk through an open house with a listing agent or one of their co-workers inside of that home, it's sort of your get out of jail free card. You can go to that open house without having signed a buyer representation agreement so that you can look at the house and you can interview the real estate agents. I think that's going to be the best part. Not only are you not going to have the obligation of a buyer representation agreement yet, if you do choose to purchase the home, you do have to have a buyer representation agreement in order to be able to move forward with any kind of offer. However, if you're just thinking about getting on the market, if you want to meet some real estate agents, go to their open houses. You're going to meet people who want clients, who are looking for buyers, who are interested in having the opportunity to interview with you. I guarantee you the ones who are willing and ready to work with willing and ready buyers are going to be open to a conversation. They might even have all of those things that I just listed with them on their person, ready to share with you: a blank purchase and sale agreement, a blank buyer representation agreement, some time on their hands to be able to talk to you about what's happening in the real estate market. Use it as your opportunity to get to know the market. Every person who's holding a house open should have an intimate knowledge of what's happening in that neighborhood, why that house is priced the way that it is, what's happening in the city, what's happening with our market nationally, and how that's affecting us locally. Ask the questions to that person and see, are they knowledgeable enough to be able to represent you moving forward? And then go on to the next open house, and then go to the next one. And then you have met 3 different realtors that you have interviewed, that you can go home and say, you know what, if I want to move forward with this home purchase, I think I want to sit down and have lunch with Rachel so that we can talk more about what my needs are and if she can help me moving forward. I think open houses are going to end up being a thing again. When COVID hit, people were terrified of going to open houses, just for lack of a better word. They were scared of, obviously, COVID spreading. They were not wanting people inside of their home that could possibly have it and infect their house. They didn't want to go into homes where they could possibly be infected, etc. There was just a lot of things that COVID changed. And I specifically remember people being upset, concerned, dumbfounded maybe a little bit on how open house culture has changed so significantly. And it's one of the things that I have not really seen rebound since we have left that COVID era of real estate. I think that with this new, all of these new things that have to do, all these new guidelines, I think that open houses are about to become a huge thing again. There are realtors who built their businesses doing open houses. They hosted an open house, they met buyers, they interviewed with them, they'd give them some follow-up, ask them if they could help them, and that's how they got clients. Word of mouth is a huge way on how realtors get business, but sometimes you're new to a city and nobody knows you, and so you have to find a way to meet new people. And open houses was that way to meet new people. I know that it can be challenging to go to an open house if you have small children, if your schedule just isn't really conducive to a 2 to 4 on a Sunday or on a Saturday. Follow a lot of realtors online. Look and see when they're hosting their open houses, we really want people who are qualified to show up to the open house, don't get me wrong. But if you see like, hey, I've been following you for a while and I want to meet you in person to determine whether or not you're somebody I'd like to work with, check them out at the open house. I think it's a great way for you to get out of the house, see what's happening, and meet new realtors. That being said, I really also hope that realtors are more excited about hosting open houses. You have no idea how disappointing it can be to leave your family on a Sunday and host a house open from 2 to 4 or 1 to 3 or whatever time and have absolutely nobody show up. There's been a lot of disappointment, I think, across our industry, feeling like it's a waste of time. There's no such thing as a waste of time, in my opinion, whenever it comes to working. If you've listened to other episodes about social media marketing that I've done, if I'm going to be at an open house, then I'm going to be working. whether that's meeting new people, whether that's creating new content. Usually I have a lender there with me, and so we'll come up with some really fun things together to post and have, content there. If people are not going to show up at my open house, then I'm going to make sure that my house is showing up in your feed through video, through pictures, all kinds of different things. So no open house will go wasted. However, I do think it's going to be very exciting if more people are hosting open houses for people to actually show up and walk through. You're going to know the realtors who are trying to pressure you into a buyer representation agreement, and you're going to know the ones who are there knowing that it is an opportunity for you to get to know each other and then potentially work together moving forward. So keep that in mind. All right, I am looking at this open house. There's a NAR FAQ sheet. It's a consumer guide, and I'm going to post this. It will be posted at some point on my Instagram and Facebook, so you're going to be able to flip through the pages, and then you'll see the official NAR consumer guide. But some of the questions that are on there that I think I've pretty much answered to this point in this episode is, I'm attending an open house without an agent. Do I need a written buyer agreement in order to tour the home? No, you don't. We've already talked about that. You'll see it on this guide. And is an agent who is hosting an open house required to enter into a written agreement with the potential buyers who attend the open house? No. In this case, since the agent is only there at the discretion of the listing broker or seller, the agent is not required to have a written agreement with the buyers touring the home. That's huge. Again, that is your way to go and look at houses without the obligation of a contract. Looking at the house without the obligation of a contract. Putting an offer in on the house, you have to have a contract. When will I be asked to sign an agreement with an agent? After you begin working with an agent and at any point before you tour your first house together. What does working with an agent mean? What does it mean to tour a home? What is the purpose of written buyer agreements, and where can I learn more about buyer agreements? All of that, it's going to be on my socials. You're going to see it in a pretty little graphic that Nikki helped me make, and I think it's going to give you a lot of really great information. As far as what it feels like in the industry right now, those changes took place approximately 4 weeks ago, and dadgummit, it has made us talk to each other. It has been honestly phenomenal. Buyers agents are reaching out to sellers agents in advance of looking at the property, and they're asking the question, is your seller offering any cooperating compensation? And then we have the opportunity to answer that question. And then I also get the opportunity to say, hey, if you have any more questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Usually I text my people in advance of them looking at a property anyway, just to say, hey, I'm so excited that you're looking at the property. Let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if you have any problems while you're in the property, etc. And that way that line of communication is already open. But now it really does require agents to communicate with one another. And just like I said before, expectations truly end up causing more heartbreak or a smooth transaction. It can go either way, the expectations that are being set. If you are working with an agent and you have a buyer representation agreement and you've set out very clearly what the expectation is between the two of you, what that contract means, then typically your transaction is going to go really smoothly. Same thing with the agents. If we are in good communication with one another, if we've got good rapport, if we're able to hand this stuff back and forth and leave emotion out of it. There was one transaction that I did that that drove me to therapy, because I was getting phone calls from an agent that was just like screeching at me on the phone about all kinds of things that we had emotionally done wrong. And I'm like, we have done nothing emotionally wrong. We listed a house, you gave us an offer, we accepted the offer, and now we're moving forward throughout this transaction. How on earth am I being yelled at by you? Anyway, that's a episode for another day. Whenever you have agents that are working together and communicate well, then the transaction typically goes really smoothly. I think that this has really given opportunities for agents to open up those lines of communications as well. All right, one last thing before I wrap up. We closed on a house this morning in Shelbyville. I work with an investor. His name's Scott with Otterby Homes. If you're selling your grandma's house, or if you're in distress and you need to sell your home quickly, but it's not, really market ready, then he is an awesome resource to come and take a look at your house to decide, is it something that he can take on and wholesale or flip, and then be able to make it market ready. Sometimes it takes, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 to be able to put a home on the market for its highest and best price. And not a lot of people have that kind of cash ready to go to be able to flip their home and put it on the market. I have thoughts on that. in just a second. I'm going to try not to derail right now. But what Scott will do is he'll go in and he'll say, hey, here's what I can offer you, and then he'll make it market ready, and then we'll list it together. So that's what we did with this home in Shelbyville. He bought it towards the end of that really big, real estate boom cycle, where you could flip a home and put it on the market and it sell within 7 days. This one did not sell within 7 days. We actually flipped it twice. So the first time we flipped it, we did what is called a rent-ready rehab. You're checking to make sure that all the major appliances are working, all the major systems, the roof's in good working order, the flooring, the walls, you get fresh paint, you get fresh flooring, make sure that, the house is functioning well, it's cleared out, and it is presentable to the market in a way that a buyer could purchase it and be able to move in and then continue to update things over time. So for example, this house had a lot of really unique features that specifically met the needs of the prior homeowner. It is very rare that these particular things inside of the home would meet the needs of the general buyer. There was a bathroom that was put together specifically for the needs of his daughter, and it was not a bathroom that made sense for honestly anybody else. And so that had to be removed. All of the flooring was replaced, all of the paint was done. The whole house was very dark with, just deep colors. There was a lot that needed to happen to it in order to make it feel light, bright, airy, and ready to move into. So we did all of those things, put it on the market, and the feedback was kind of wishy-washy. It was very interesting. It was the first one that we listed where the buyers had started getting a little bit more nitpicky. We took it off the market, did a lot to the exterior. There was a barn out back that needed to be removed. It was kind of falling apart. So we removed the barn, painted the exterior, did a complete overhaul of the primary bathroom. That was a funny piece of feedback. So historically, people have not really been picky about what the primary bathroom or, any of the bathrooms for that matter, have looked like. It had fresh paint. It was dated blue tile, but it was a fully functional shower. We had several people walk into it and say, the shower is too small and we're going to have to completely gut that bathroom. We don't have the ability to buy the home and gut the bathroom. So when we pulled it off the market, we did the shower and we did the exterior. And I think that they were two fantastic refreshes on that home, and that is what got the home sold. So we were able to kind of take a feel on what was happening with the market, adjust as needed, and then go from there. Another interesting thing is that we had the home listed without any furniture in it. There was no staging inside of the house. We have not historically staged homes because, again, the market was moving fast enough that I feel like by the time you even get the staging stuff in there, the home was sold and you had to get the staging stuff out. Now, the staging really does, for lack of a better word, set the stage for how people are going to feel about a house. With this one specifically, it was built back it was like the 1970s. And functional obsolescence, or, the ability to function in a home naturally changes over time. There are homes that don't have dishwashers, and it's because dishwashers weren't a thing back in the 50s, but now they are a thing. So there's, functionally obsolete. There is a function inside of the home that you need that it does not have. Same thing with floor plans and layouts. When you think of a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, you're probably thinking of some of the newer construction, really simple ranch style layouts. If you turn back time a little bit and you have a home that's been remodeled over the years, it's got a unique floor plan that was popular or accessible during the time that it was built, and then it was adjusted over the years in a way that fit the needs of the homeowner, and now it doesn't necessarily fit your needs, so we are having to fix it. So in this particular case, there were several different sitting areas. There was like a living room, there was a dining room, there was a breakfast nook, but the dining room could also have been like a den kind of thing. There was a sunroom. There was a lot of areas just to gather. And we decided that it was time for us to stage that house. When we were getting the feedback, of like, we're just not really understanding the layout. I don't know how my furniture is going to fit in here. We decided, all right, it's time for us to put furniture in it. So we reached out to a group, Janelle Sells, and she came in and did a beautiful job staging the property. And within 14 days, that sucker was under contract. made a huge difference on how people felt whenever they walked into the home. The master bedroom had been 2 rooms formerly, and they knocked down some walls and made it one big room. And so whenever we put the bed in there and had the nightstands and just kind of created the atmosphere that one would expect in a primary bedroom, people saw the vision. The majority of us are not interior designers. You know, you walk into a room and I'm like, okay, I have a sectional couch, and does the L fit here or does it fit here? But you're not necessarily thinking about walkways, pathways. Most of the time when folks that I help move, they're like, I didn't realize that my furniture wasn't going to fit in here this way, or I visualized this differently. It's better, it seems, on the front end to go ahead and set that expectation. Here is where you could possibly put your couch. Here's where you could put your dining room table. We're going to set the tone in the home for coziness, for, you know, this lived in feel, especially for people who are flipping homes. I think that it's important to consider having somebody come in and stage a house. So we've done it twice now. On this one, we've got one listed out in Estill Springs that has staging in it, and it's just like chef's kiss. So good. Love the staging in there. It's made for beautiful pictures online, like going from just these kind of cold images of just a room, and now having these detail shots of this is your view from the living room into the kitchen. This is the setup that you could have inside of your living room. Having more detail, lifestyle type photography, even in the bathrooms, I think draws people into a listing far better than just like a cold shot. Derailing just for a second on that one. If your listing agent is not using a professional photographer, hire a different listing agent. It should be standard now for listing agents to put professional photography on their MLS listings. If you see them walk through your house with an iPhone, and those pictures end up online, they are not showing your home in the best light that it could possibly be shown. It was an anomaly however many years ago. An agent gets a $400,000 house and they're like, this is awesome, we're getting a high dollar house. At this point now, entry-level homes are in the $300,000 range. That is still an expensive house. That's still a home that, is worthy of having professional photography. To further that, if your home is nearing $1 million and you have an agent that refuses to hire somebody to professionally take the pictures, then what are they doing? What are they doing with the money? Not only is the money that you're paying them going towards, their personal paycheck, it's also going towards the value that they're providing you in listing the home. Whenever I get paid at the end of a deal, I go to pay the person who did the measurements so that I have accurate measurements of the house, paying the photographer, the videographer, paying the person who does the staging, paying the assistant, paying Nikki to be able to help me with the social media marketing, or paying for a transaction coordinator to make sure that all of our paperwork is in order and our timelines are being met. There's lots of things that need to be paid out of that commission check. And if you're getting iPhone pictures, pick another realtor. What we sometimes see as a feature is not going to be seen as a feature for anybody else. And it is the photographer's job to highlight everything about that house. There have been, this is not just a one-time case. There have been multiple instances where I've seen people just like get up close to like the front yard landscaping and take a picture of the pretty flowers, and they're like, this Easter lily is going to sell this house. The Easter lily is not going to sell the house. The Easter lily looks beautiful in front of the home, but that zooming in like that is not going to be helpful. You need somebody who has a professional eye to be able to take care of that. B, the lighting really does matter. I work with Clear Lens Photography. Kara and Dale have done a phenomenal job of taking care of everything that I've needed in my listings, making sure that I've got good detail shots, making sure that I've got good informational shots. It's not just about taking a picture of the front of the house. It's about making sure that the future buyer can see where it sits in the neighborhood, how it sits on the lot. Where does the house sit on the lot? Where are approximately the property lines? How would you feel as you are pulling into the driveway? What are you going to see? People are looking at those things. People are So my husband and I, when we were looking for our house, when we first moved to Tullahoma, we would zoom in on the pictures and look for dog bowls. I am an animal person, sort of. I mean, I say that like I'm not. I have 2 dogs. I have a cat. I've got fish. We got some chickens. Like, there's stuff happening here. We have animals. But when I'm looking at a house and I'm looking for cleanliness in a house, I'm looking for the dog bowls. Where do they keep all the dog food? And is it going to smell like dog whenever I walk into that house? There are things like that you really need to be paying attention to. And the professional photographers, they're trained for that. They shut the toilet lids. They shut the curtains for the bathrooms. They make sure that, your used towel is put up in a nice way, or, put into the shower so that nobody can see it. We're walking around the house and we're making sure that when we're taking these pictures, there's not a reason why somebody would say, no, I don't want to go look at it. Anyway, all of that is very, very important. I feel like there was something I derailed on earlier and I did not loop back to. I'll probably end up talking about it in my Instagram stories one day. I'll listen to this episode and I'll think, oh my goodness, I can't believe that I didn't say that. But anyway, all right, so that's it for today. Buyer representation agreements, huge deal right now. NAR guidelines have required us to communicate with people. It's an incredible thing. So now lines of communication that maybe once were strained are now opened by requirement, and I think it's going to benefit realtors and buyers and sellers equally. We also talked a little bit about what it means to list your house right now. So if you are planning on listing your home, you need to pay a little bit more attention to those details. People aren't just going to walk in and say, all right, I'm ready to go, let's make this happen. That was my train of thought. I knew talking through this was going to be helpful. Home maintenance. Regular home maintenance will save you thousands of dollars when it is time to list your house in the future. If you ignore your crawl space, then when you have to sell your home, there will likely be issues down there that you have put off because you couldn't see it. In Tennessee, we live in a wet area, and our crawl spaces typically have a little bit of mold, a little bit of moisture, and there's things that you can do to both prevent and protect and fix all of those things. If you don't do it, then by the time it comes for you to sell your house in 5 to 10 years, you look under that crawl space and you're like, I remember whenever I probably should have put a dehumidifier down there 10 years ago, and now the wood is rotting. That's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. You took a $500, $1,500 issue, I'm not quoting you, call somebody, and you've turned it into a much, much, much bigger issue because you refuse to take care of just the small things. HVACs, change out your air filters. If you feel like you're getting like seasonal allergies, if your home is feeling stuffy, if it feels like your HVAC system is just not keeping up, like it should be colder than what it is, change out your air filters. You're gonna put strain on that system that does not need to be there. Those air filters are $15 maybe if you're buying the expensive ones, and you shouldn't. You really should just buy the cheap ones. Ask any HVAC professional. The cheap ones are the best ones. If you are not changing that out, that really small expense could turn into somebody saying, hey, we took a look at the system and it looks like there's a couple of parts that are broken because it had to work too hard to cool your house. And now in order for us to buy this house, we're gonna want a $5,000 credit or a $10,000 credit because we're gonna have to replace that. Same thing with your roof. If you see a leak in a room, take care of it. Get up in that attic, figure out where it's at, have somebody come out and take a look at it and fix it. Because the longer you wait, the worse it'll get. And you're gonna turn, again, a $150 problem into a $1,500 problem or a $10,000 problem. And most of the time people don't see those things until they go to sell their house. And they're like, well, I redid the kitchen counters. That should be worth something. Maybe it is worth something. But if you have a major leak in the roof that has caused structural problems, nobody's gonna care what your countertops look like. I love you, I mean it. If you are a homeowner, you have to take into consideration the cost of home ownership and the responsibility. Be a good steward of your home and just have things looked at, pay attention, know during the winter what it is that you need to do to protect your home and to protect yourself. All of that being said, buyers are getting a little bit pickier. You need to make sure that you've been taking care of your home and that you're ready to answer the call whenever they say, hey, here's 15 things that I want fixed. you have every right to say, no, I'm not fixing any of that, find another house. You also have the ability to say, I understand what you're saying, and here's the 7 things that I would like to fix for you, and you can come to an agreement that way. But that is what we're seeing in the market right now. So the NIR changes, some different ways that sellers can make their homes better to be able to sell. And then, of course, but staging piece of it I think was really huge. All right, I am rambling. Today's episode was fantastic. I feel really good about it. I hope you felt really good about it too. Let me know what your favorite part about it is. Give me your tips and tricks. What are you doing? What are you thinking about as far as the housing market goes? I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you soon.